Hello and welcome to the Zoomer Hall Concert Series. I'm Kathleen Kajioka. As always at Zoomer Hall, we are a 4-in-1 operation. A live concert, a live radio broadcast on the new Classical FM, a live webcast, which you can watch online at classicalfm.ca, and a taping of a future episode of the concert series airing on Vision TV. Now, today's guest is very well known around these parts as the host of the Oasis on weekday afternoons and Conductor's Choice on Sundays. But Kerry Stratton is also a world-traveling conductor, leading orchestras both at home and abroad. Now, Kerry usually travels light when he comes to the Zoomerplex, but today he's brought a whole orchestra with him. Let's bring them on now. We have an 18-piece string band. We have an 18-piece string band coming on stage. They've been very busy this summer with the summer Symphony in the Garden series at Casa Loma, which was a weekly concert series that ran all summer long. We'll hear more about that. But first, let's hear them play, and we'll bring on their Maestro Kerry Stratton. bassist Kerry Stratton leading the Toronto Concert Orchestra in music by Mozart, Divertimento. We are going to have a chat with Kerry and hear more from the orchestra when we come back.
Okay, so we have a 5-minute commercial break because we're live on the web and live on the radio as well, so we're off the radio right now. Hi, web people, nice to see you. That gives the audience a chance to ask all of these lovely people some questions. So, anybody have a question? Oh, yeah. We're live on the web right now. Okay, I've got Marilyn. Just hang on a sec. I'll let you. Thank you.
Mike's ready to go?
You're just going to talk. You can just talk.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Stratton, do you have a subscription series to which our audience can subscribe?
Are you ever a dear friend? Yes, we have a subscription series and we travel about the province too. Visit the website, torontoconcertorchestra.com. We used to be homeless, not so anymore. We're performing out of Timothy Eaton Memorial Church. And it's a very lovely environment to perform in. They let us store our library there as well. So it's, for the moment anyway, it's home. So yes, there's a series here in Toronto, and you can subscribe by going to torontoconcertorchestra.com. Thank you so much. I did not plant that question. I did not. She's simply a brilliant person. Yes. Questions for the musicians. You got all these musicians to ask.
Mr. Stratton, how do you arrive at repertoire for a concert orchestra? Is it a combination of string quartet and downgraded symphony, or how do you arrive at it?
That allows me to answer something that I would love to address today, and I appreciate your question very much. We form up as is required. For example, later in the season, the subscription season, we're going to be doing Saint-Saëns Organ Symphony, which I assure you I can't do with just this ensemble. It's MGM, it's roll credits, it's Busby Berkeley. So then we'll be about 43 plus the great pipe organ at Timothy Eaton Church, and that makes an incredible experience. And I must tell you, I have neurotic pleasure in conducting that score. But how do I arrive at repertoire? There are no artistic decisions that don't impact budget, and there are no budgetary decisions that have no artistic impact. I also must program what I know some of our dear partners in the province would like to hear. For example, we're doing a Beethoven concert later in October, and there's no day in the year when I don't want to conduct Beethoven, but they also wanted to hear it at that lovely old opera house in Orillia. So the answer is you may have your Beethoven concert, and we'll have ours, the same one, twice. So that's a way in which we go. There are plenty of musicians here. You can ask any one of them, anything, just about.
Kerry, you have a strong connection with Prague, I believe. Can you tell us how that came about?
Well, that came about some years back. Why does it resonate for me? That's a bit like saying, why do you like chocolate? Explain, please, why you like chocolate. There is a peculiar melancholy that I find distinctly Irish. And we simply connected on that level. The musicians are wonderful. They are the biggest proof of telepathy that I have ever encountered in my life. Because believe me, I have almost no Czech beyond ordering a beer. But in the front of the Czech Philharmonic, if you think it, they do it. It's remarkable. Effortlessly musical people. And I love it there. And it's hard to dislike someone who loves you.
No. We have time for another question. Anybody have a question for the musicians? Don't make me sing and dance.
Okay, question for a musician, okay.
I thought I was going to have to sing and dance. Just hold on 1 second for me. Just hang on 1 second, sir. Go ahead.
How do you guys get into the orchestra? What's the process of becoming a concert musician for the Toronto Concert Orchestra?
Just wait for
I'm
the
glad
mic.
I don't have to answer that. Here, you answer.
Okay. Very often it's through audition, a rigorous audition, and it's very competitive. And in some cases, it's the orchestra is contracted, meaning it's by word of mouth and by reputation, and we must know each other very well before we play with each other. Is that a good enough answer?
Good enough for me.
Time for one more question. Oh, do we have time or no? With nine. Bill, do we have time?
Oh, let's.
Okay, we're gonna save that for the next break. We're 90 seconds to air.
Oh.
So with that said, remember, think of some more questions. Right? So, Kerry. Yes, ma'am. This is where you're gonna be in here. Here's your tea. That's my tea. Yeah. Yeah. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna go to a commercial break, or right out of the commercial break. She's gonna begin talking to you. You just look at her, talk to her. When you're done, if you're speaking to her, either give her the mic or I'll come and speak to her. We want to make it to air. Seconds to air. 20 seconds again. When I get to 5, that big loud applause. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, in 5.
Welcome back. We're live from Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kajioka here with Kerry Stratton and his Toronto Concert Orchestra. Now, Kerry, one of the questions I get asked as a musician all the time is, what on earth does a conductor do?
Well, I'm certainly on the spot for all the conducting fraternity and sorority. I would say what the public, and sadly some musicians don't realize, is that when you're listening to an ensemble, you're listening to the conductor. Leonard Bernstein used to say, there are conductors who can make a village band sound like the Vienna Philharmonic, and the Vienna Philharmonic sound like a village band. It does matter who's up there. But you must bring the strength of your interpretation and your personality. And then, in all cases, I find the best results are to let them play.
Sounds good to me. I'm sure they would agree.
Well,
now, speaking of letting them play, tell us about the Toronto Concert Orchestra, this fine band of musicians you have here.
In this particular incarnation today, we fit as many people as we could. When I got the word from our colleague John Van Driel to put an ensemble together, I thought, well, today, strings. And for this number, for 16 for strings, as you well know, there's a lot of repertoire. There's 10 lifetimes worth of repertoire for string ensembles. So I thought this is the incarnation that we'd have for us today. But we form up as needed. I mean, earlier we were answering questions about upcoming performances, and they're as large as the Saint-Saëns organ symphony and as medium-sized as a Beethoven 8th.
Now, you were once labeled Toronto's homeless orchestra.
That's right.
What did you mean by that?
Well, we were the homeless orchestra, but it didn't hurt us because we played in some wonderful environments and we showed that we were willing to play in some different environments, which included the nightclub on Jarvis, the Phoenix. We played there a couple of times. And also the floor of the Stock Exchange. We played for the opening of a Raptors game, and they won that night, too. So we played on that. I thought that was rather good, you know. And we played a concert where we invited everybody to come to the beach and to bring your household pets as well, because it was an outdoor concert, and the dog's part of the family in many cases.
About how many dogs were there?
I don't know. I was busy conducting Leo Delibes, but the whole point wasn't the dogs. It was that everybody could come.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody could come, and it's no different than any other outdoor pops concert.
Did any of them sing along?
I don't recall. No.
So you had a very busy summer
Yes.
at Casa Loma. Tell us
Our
about that.
second summer. I am so delighted about this. And many of these people that you see in the ensemble today have played at the Casa Loma series. And that is a summer symphony in the garden. I think the Toronto and the GTA in general needs a summer series. We're certainly a large enough city. And the public evidently backed us up because we had to go an extra week. The demand was so great. And we are offering figures along the lines of 14,000 in total attendance. So I would say that's an interest on the part of the public for a rollicking summer series, and it was good. It was a good experience, and I also like to keep the blend open to the stage. We had jazz, we had movie music, we had an opera night, we had a Beethoven symphony, Ravel, Debussy. We also did a tribute to Marlene Dietrich. So you put it all in that sort of musical Moulinex, and there's your summer series.
Well, it's quite diverse, the programming. Is there anything in particular that you really love to conduct? Or is that too broad a question?
Well, I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now, but tomorrow, if Grand Salon formed up and we did a whole bunch of Gershwin and Cole Porter, I'd be pretty happy with that too.
Yeah, tell me about the Grand Salon. This sounds like an interesting
Grand Salon
group.
is a direct outgrowth from access that I received to this most incredible library in the Paramount Theater in Oakland, California. Now, this theater went up in 1929, and it was to accommodate several thousand filmgoers because, obviously, it's really before the age of television in the home, so you could expect a couple of thousand people to pay their money and come hear it. And before the talkies, it was a theater orchestra, and the library they had was simply massive. It's still there. And as I went through the library, there were scores by Jerome Kern and George Gershwin. I remember pulling one down that said, "The Gershwin latest tune for orchestra, $1." And I took it down and had a look through all these things. They're all the most famous tunes of the day, when music was, I think, considerably more precious because it wasn't over available. And the theater orchestra was the first, probably, orchestral sonority that a lot of people heard by going to the movie house. And I love the orchestration, too. It's just a handful of strings, a banjo, trumpet, a saxophone. I feel like I've left the priesthood and joined a biker gang. It's really a marvelous thing to do. But it's a great, when you hear the sound, the first thing that struck me was, that's right. Yeah, that's 1923. Right there, live. So I've got a lot of pleasure out of working with that ensemble.
When's the next opportunity that we might be able to hear them?
Well, we just did one with the great Heather Bambrick. We did Puttin' on the Ritz, which was, by the way, the title tune of the show. The next one with that same sort of ensemble, think Café in Paris in the 30s, and it's an evening of Edith Piaf. And that's a lovely concert too. But it's still Grand Salon. It's always that incarnation, that configuration. I'll put it that way. That configuration of the orchestra. So you see, we form up in different things. We're
very flexible.
You're very flexible and must be flexible. I think that's the future for live music.
Yeah, I wanted to say. I mean, speaking of flexibility in the future, I mean, putting together groups is not an easy task.
No.
What is involved? Let our audiences know what goes
What's
into
involved
this.
in getting people together? Well. First of all, I'd be really remiss if I didn't say these are some of the great colleagues that you can have in Toronto, and they deserve a round of applause. They are so great. The second thing is to ask them early enough so they're not booked somewhere else. And contracting an orchestra, well, I mean, it's Sharon here has been our contractor on many occasions. Did the first series at Casa Loma, for example. And we have to put together, people that are going to be up to the task. And it's a challenge sometimes. Sometimes it all falls into place.
And we're going to hear some Mendelssohn. Can you tell us about the piece we're going to hear?
Well, Mendelssohn was just too talented. That's really his problem. He had way too much talent. This is the work of a teenage Mendelssohn whose family supplied him with a string ensemble for Sunday afternoon concerts in their home. And he produced a series of these early string symphonies. We're going to play the D major.
Anything particular we can look forward to in this string symphony?
If I can get at a ripping tempo in the finale.
Okay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Kerry Stratton and the Toronto Concert Orchestra. Kerry Stratton and the Toronto Concert Orchestra. Music by Mendelssohn, who was just as much of a child prodigy as Mozart was. Written when he was a teenager, that was his Symphonia in D. We are going to chat more with Kerry and hear some more music when we come back.
We've got another 7-minute break. Again, hello to everybody on the web watching us. You should be here and watching us live in studio. Okay. So we have some time for some more questions. Okay, I have your first question. I will. Just 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
Viola, how do you play the viola? I mean, I ended up in cello because the violin guy threw me out, but you ended up by choice. So can you explain the process?
You're asking the bass player?
No, the viola.
Oh, the old.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
How do you get to play it? Because I ended up in one instrument because they threw me out of the other instrument, but you probably did it by choice. So what was the process? And not the violin.
So I started as a violin too, but seeing the viola, I thought, oh, what is that? It's pretty cool. So I wanted to be different. So that's how I got into playing the viola. So yes, I hope I answered your question. Do you want to say something?
One of the orchestra. Is this the only orchestra of which you are members, or do you play in other orchestras, or do you have other jobs, or how do you support yourselves?
Are you going to talk? I can't talk. Okay, I just need to get you the mic. I was looking around. You're the only one that looked like it.
I think every single one of us plays in multiple orchestras. I wouldn't be surprised if 5 to sometimes 10. And many of us also teach music lessons, private lessons, and that's how we make an income.
Okay, same side. I'm sorry? Yeah, just 1 sec. Just hold on a sec. Go ahead.
Kerry, it was very, very successful at Casa Loma. Are you going to do it again next year? And also, are you going to have a different format, or are you going to include other things?
Am I going to do it again next summer? That is the plan. All right. It's my Kissinger-like response. And what was the second part of your question?
Are you going to change anything in the format, or are you going to have something different?
Oh, well, the things that are truly successful, I see no reason to dispense with them. For example, I mentioned earlier the Piaf program. We have done that, and it would just be well, bordering on scandal if we didn't include it again. It's like not having Messiah at Christmas. You have Piaf in the summer series, but no, we try and mix it up. I don't want the players to play the same old. But there's some things that will definitely be the same. Definitely, yeah. For example, if we did another movie music evening, there's plenty of films that I haven't touched upon. I would really like very much to get some of the scores for the Chaplin films and just do a focus on Chaplin movies. What a genius. What a genius. And I would like to make that a program, that idea. And that came up from a brilliant friend of mine who had that idea recently.
Great.
Yeah.
3 minutes to air. 3 minutes.
I was wondering about, all right, Kerry, I was wondering about your background as conductor, how you came to it. Did you perhaps come from another instrument like Peter Ingen? And are you interested in orchestrating or composing?
All right, that's a multifaceted question.
It is. Sorry.
Let's go backwards. I am always interested in orchestration. That is a wonderful, never-ending joy, and it's got a lot of problems, and I admire the great orchestrators. I wish I had more time to do it. I actually had more time for orchestration when I was a student 40 years ago. That's when I really got the joy of it now, but I still open a score with delight to look at some of the great ones, Ravel, Respighi, Stravinsky, who would do the polar opposite of whatever everybody else was doing and got such wonderful results. What was the other part of your question? How did I come to conducting? Well, I was studying violin, and unfortunately I had an accident and ruined 2 fingers of my right hand in a factory accident, so I switched to conducting, and I enjoyed switching to conducting. It was great, and I've enjoyed it ever since. But how you come to conducting is everybody has a different road. There are no 2 roads the same. They're all different. I found early as a student that I could organize concerts in Montreal in the Cégeps. So I would organize small ensembles, not unlike this one, to go out and do concerts there. And I found it worked for me, so I made it happen. I'm glad I did too. But there are no 2 roads the same, I guarantee you. There are none.
90 seconds to air. 90 seconds.
Let's get nervous, okay?
Okay, so hold the mic up higher, not down low.
Oh, really? Okay.
Hold the mic up higher, not down low.
Okay. Do I need it now? Oh.
Yes. So, and then just remember, after your last piece here, as Kathleen's walking, just stay up there.
You know what to say, boy. That's it.
30 seconds to air. 30 seconds. Seconds. In 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, in 5.
Welcome back. We're live from Zoomer Hall, and I'm here with the Toronto Concert Orchestra and their Maestro Kerry Stratton, who is very well known to listeners of the New Classical FM because, of course, you are the host of the Oasis and Conductor's Choice. How did you get into broadcasting?
That was interesting. I was living. It answers partially the question: how did you get into conducting? The very first post I ever had, where I could say I could actually pay the rent by my ability to conduct, was in the middle of British Columbia, in a forest the size of Austria. It's the town of Prince George, and I went there at the age of 24, and I had an orchestra. And if you're going to learn, that was a good place to learn. So while I was there, I was teaching courses at a college, the community college there, and they said you need 3 more hours of credit. So there's a town way north of here. We don't expect you to drive, but we do expect you to tape the lectures, and they'll play them on the radio station up there.
Oh, interesting.
So I decided, all right, I would do that. And believe me, greater fakery was never heard than my putting this together on a tape. But I did reel-to-reel tapes, sent them up on the bus, and before you know it, we had an audience. Then when I came back to Ontario, I got a position at a radio station in Sarnia, and that led to the opening that was in, let's see, where was the station? It was still CFMX then, and it was down in Cobourg, but it wasn't quite in Cobourg, and so I applied, and they gave me a Sunday evening job. So again, I did it all by the seat of my pants because I've had no training in broadcasting whatsoever.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't relate at all.
I don't know why. Listen, for years, I couldn't have shown you which button you press to go on the air. I had no idea because it was always pre-taped.
But you have that great voice.
Well, I don't know. Thank you. You're very kind.
And how has that balance worked out for you, broadcasting and performing?
Oh, I think it's worked out very well because I think what is important for all artists to convey, and I mean all artists, every form, is the joy of your own personal joy of making music or making paintings or appearing in a play. If I feel the joy of it, you will too. And as far as conducting goes, if I'm not convinced about a score, I will never convince the players. And if I don't convince the players, I will never, ever convince the public. And that applies to ensembles great, small, famous, and not so. Mm-hmm. It is the way we do it. But it's contagious. If you have that, it'll come off the stage like heat. It'll come off the canvas. People will, there's an expression, great artists don't need to name their paintings.
That's a good point. So on air, it's the same idea for you?
I feel, that if I can convey that what I feel about this piece of music, you might catch fire too. And in any case, I don't feel it's wasted energy.
That's great. Now, I want to come back to conducting and your history of conducting. How did you begin?
At McGill, I was in the theory class. I can tell you just about the day and the hour, and the door opened and somebody came in and motioned for me, and I thought, my God, what have I done? But I came out and said, the Montreal Junior Symphony conductor is ill tonight, and would you take rehearsal? And I said, sure, after I regained consciousness, and they were wonderful. It was a great experience. At the end of the year, they offered me the position, so I had a position. But see, the thing is in conducting, you can't get a job until you've had a job, and it's catch-22.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a very competitive field. I mean, how do you make your way through that?
Well, you make your way, as I said earlier in the answer to that response, there are no two routes that are the same. You can find doctors who've gone to the same university and who interned at the same hospital and might set up practice in the same building. The same cannot be said of a conductor, because there's no room. You have to go and create your own or be where something's going to happen for you. As far as studies go, I went to the Pierre Monteux School and also to the Conservatory in Vienna, and had some good instruction there. Charles Bruch, who was the chef ancien of the Paris Television Radio Orchestra, and Sir Charles Mackerras in Vienna, who actually sort of lit the fire for me for Czech music. In Vienna. Now that's the odd place you might think to find, but he's very good with Janacek, and so that sort of put me on that path. University of Toronto, when I came back to Canada, there was an advanced conducting course with Michel Tabachnik. They did that too. But in general, you seize the day.
Now, briefly, you have conducted all around the world, and Prague especially. What do you notice in terms of differences between musicians in different regions?
Well, less and less. I would have said there was more differences 20 years ago. The world is becoming homogenized, and there are still orchestras that have their own particular, flavor, their sound, their characteristic, however you want to describe it. But I'm not interested in this musical uniformity. That is of no interest to me. The Czechs still have their particular sound. The Hungarians, I mean, some of the string playing is simply astounding. It was just wonderful. And again, in Moscow, there's a different school as well. So those colors are.
How do you approach them if you're coming?
Well, it's
from here?
How do I approach it? First of all, try and program things that I think will work well with them. When I conducted in Spain a few years ago, I think the logic was, well, he's from a cold country, so we'll make this all Scandinavian.
Oh.
Which, well, the Helios Overture, the sun comes out, but it doesn't shine, if you know what I mean. Right. It was a bit like that. So sometimes it doesn't work, but by and large, I try and choose repertoire that I know the orchestra can do really well, and I may learn something too, and I'm wide open to learning from them.
Well, tell us what we're going to hear next.
We are going to hear Dag Viren, speaking of things Scandinavian. This is from his Serenade for Strings.
Okay, the Doug Viren Serenade, Kerry Stratton leading the Toronto Concert Orchestra. Three movements from the Serenade by Doug Viren on the New Classical FM. We're live from Zimmer Hall. That was the Toronto Concert Orchestra, led by Kerry Stratton, well known here as host of Conductor's Choice and of the Oasis every weekday afternoon here on the New Classical FM. And if you stay tuned, you'll hear him on the air in a couple of hours. But it's so great to take him in his other life as a conductor. Kerry, thank you so much for bringing your music here today. And that's it for us at Zoomer Hall. I'm Kathleen Kajioka. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.